Support WrestleTalk!
Give us a subscribe.
Move aside WrestleMania because it's NXT CALL-UP-A-MANIA. I'm Ollie Davis, this is Luke Owen. Welcome to this special Raw After Mania WrestleRamble review special where we are kicking off with all the NXT call-ups that surprised us on last night's episode. That's Ember Moon, No Way Jose, and OAP.
Yes, OAP.
AOP.
What did I say?
You said OAP.
Old age pensioner.
Which is old age pensioner.
Do
yes.
apologise. AOP, I mean.
AOP.
Yes.
Who was your favourite?
Who was my favourite? I think I'm going to go with Authors of Pain because about time they got called up anyway.
Yes.
They really had much else to do down in NXT. Ember Moon, I think, was the one that I think we'd even said that Ember Moon could get called up.
Especially when she dropped the title on Saturday.
Yes. But I was still actually genuinely a little bit surprised that they gave Ember the call-up, only because they've been positioning her in NXT as like this like matriarchal figure of the division. And then she's just gone. Like, she literally lost the title. She's like, I'm here to protect the women of NXT. She loses the title. She's like, now I'm leaving.
See you later.
See you later. I'm off now. That Shayna Baszler is terrifying, and I'm off now.
I don't blame her.
Yeah, I was going to say, after that match, I just don't want to get involved with her anymore. So I found that one slightly surprising, but I think it would be a really good thing because now they can move away from that character and maybe give her a better one because that character was not working for her whatsoever.
Well, she didn't have a... Oh, I guess, yeah, she had a motivation. I'm going to protect the NXT locker room. I'm a lifer in NXT.
Yeah.
But she doesn't really have a character. She's quite Jeff Hardy in that regard. But I'm not drawn to either of those. I think she will get over because people do latch onto that. But I'm just not a fan of that style of character. She's a great worker. When she had because she was Nia Jax's surprise tag team partner against Alexa Bliss and Mickie James, and when she got the hot tag and effectively squashed Bliss and James and got the pin on Bliss, former Raw Women's Champion, she looked great.
Yeah.
Really zipped around, high-flying moves.
That's good. And she will get over because her finisher is so impressive to look at that it's one of those things she'll get over because that move is so good.
Yeah.
And people will cheer when they see it. So I think she should do all right up on the main roster. But it's one of these things I was going to say with all of these call-ups, though. It's not just about the call-up. Because Ty Dillinger had a very good call-up. But, what has happened since?
American Alpha had a good call-up.
Bobby Roode had a good call-up, but look what happened since.
Shinsuke Nakamura, where's that guy?
Exactly. So it's one thing to debut up on the main roster, but, it's my one concern with all three of them was that none of them were inserted into storylines.
Yes.
They were just... Well, what were you going to say?
Well, I was going to say that's the nature of these shows. And it's my main criticism of the Raw After Mania, because there's a superstar shake-up next week, because there's a draft next week. You can't really put anyone in feuds because they might not be... It will sort of give away the game.
You said that, though. They put Joe into a feud with Reigns.
I don't think either of them are moving.
Well, you'd assume not.
Backlash, I guess Backlash, you could have that as almost a special attraction match with people on different brands.
Yeah.
And you can work around because I think The Miz, the way he was beaten later on in the show, he's probably moving over to SmackDown. But stuff with belts, you can be like, ooh, is the IC belt going to go over to SmackDown? So I don't know what I'm trying to say here.
I was going to say, you actually argued against your own point there. You said you can't do it now because you've got a pay-per-view coming and you've got the draft coming. And he's like, but I suppose you could do that as a special attraction.
You can't do it now, but you totally can do it now. But what I'm saying is that you can't do it now.
You can't do it now.
I'm going to go with that one.
You can't do it now, but you could do it at the pay-per-view.
Well, yes. I've argued myself round
you certainly
to
have.
your way of thinking. I hate it when I agree with people who disagree with me.
Not my way of thinking. But I was just... It's a concerning thing that they didn't get inserted into storylines. However, my prediction for next week is that during the tag team eliminator match, is this what they've called it?
Yes, it's not a tournament.
No.
Apparently Vince McMahon doesn't like
is this
word
real?
tournament.
No, he doesn't.
Well, they never call them tournaments. When was the last...
I suppose they call it scrambles and things like that.
You know what? There's been a lot of flack targeted towards the eliminator. I think it sounds pretty cool.
Tag team eliminator.
I didn't know what it was, though, for a while. I was like, So, because after the first match of this was Galanderson losing to the Revival, and I thought, okay, so it's like a gauntlet match that runs over weeks. So, I don't know where I got this from. So, it's like, so Revival are going to face the team, and the last team at the end. But then they no, it's obviously a tournament structure.
I was going to say, in all fairness, when I wrote out my notes for AOP's debut, because Heath Slater and Rhino come out, and Heath Slater's like, hey, we're going to challenge any tag team in the back or whatever, and then AOP debut and squash them. I wrote in my notes, was this part of the Eliminator?
I don't know.
Well,
I hope so.
So, here's my prediction, because I think the way that the show is built, next week, it's the Revival versus Woken, Hardy and Bray Wyatt, and those winners will face the Bar at Greatest Royal Rumble. But I think AOP are going to come down and destroy both teams and insert themselves straight into this title picture.
Okay, so yes. So what was your idea for Moon? Oh, that was your idea for...
Yeah, I was going to say,
Sure.
Ember Moon, I don't know.
Yeah.
And I mean, No Way Jose, it's not the way I like to debut people, which is just like, hey, look, they've come down and they've beaten a jobber. Because it's like, cool, what are you going to do next week? Like, because at the moment when I look at No Way Jose, I was like, I don't see what you're going to do next week or the week after or the week after. And before you know it, you're Adam Rose.
I think No Way Jose is destined to be an undercard guy. He's fun. He gets the crowd going.
He's destined to be the next Apollo Crews.
I was more excited by the lead lady in his little party troupe. Even though she had a face mask on, I thought everything else was pretty good.
I didn't notice anyone in the lineup. It's one of those things now. You look at that lineup in about 6 months' time, you'll be like, "Oh, look, that's the next contender for the Universal Champion. It's the next Braun Strowman."
I the pictures, because on WWE.com there's a few pictures of the Jose Buds, whatever they're called, the people who came down in his party entourage, standing at ringside during his match, all like really happy. And they look stupid. They all have such like one-dimensional happy faces on, like stock photo happy faces, where they're actually a bit dead inside, a bit vacant. I enjoyed that tremendously.
I wrote in my notes, he's been main rostered.
Yes. Yeah, there's I don't see anything in No Way Jose's future. And yeah, I do. Yeah.
And that's a shame. Because No Way Jose is actually really good. And like he's got a fun character and he's got a fun entrance, but like aside from that, it's as Bruce Pritchard says, and then the bell rings. But he's also really good in the ring. But like it's clear that he's been brought up to the main roster with zero plan. And when you're brought up with zero plan, you have nothing to head towards.
Because he's been on NXT forever.
He's been on there for a long, long time.
Yeah.
And he had nothing in NXT. He never had, like, apart from his feud with Austin Aries, like, what has No Way Jose had, really, in NXT?
Did he not have something with Cassius Ohno?
I think
but that might have been in Cassius Ohno's first run.
Yeah.
So a long, long time ago. But yes, I see him as quickly going to the Titus level.
That's what I mean. Yeah,
Yeah.
you end up just like, I mean, then that's always a bit of a disappointment. But you have to have these people on the roster. I suppose.
He's going to have a classic feud with Goldust
on main event.
that is only referenced once every couple of weeks, and then they forget about it and don't pay off.
You mean 205 Live's Goldust?
Yes, yeah. What? 205 pounds of gold.
Yeah.
Gold.
Remember that gimmick?
But it was before Trips got in charge, mate. Before Trips was like, no, okay, right. There's a concept to this show. It's live. It's in the... Okay.
Do you think they had that meeting? So Triple H is there with all the 205 guys, and Goldust walks in with his cup of coffee and be like, hey, guys, I'm here for the 205 Live meeting, so I'm part of this roster.
And they've just come out of the HR thing that says, don't body shame.
No.
Man, you're looking tall.
Yeah. Sorry, Dustin. Yeah. Did you get the memo?
Yeah. So yeah, Ember Moon. It was a good debut.
It was a good debut.
It sort of hints to me that Alexa Bliss might be off.
Oh, back to SmackDown.
Yeah, I don't know what she could do on Raw.
But it's so funny because the two names you've mentioned there, so Bliss and Miz, going to SmackDown, they were the ones who've just come from SmackDown. So like my thinking with this superstar, this draft,
It's not a full... But they did say they're going to be trading things back and forth.
But yes. But no, I
I guess
appreciate
there's
that.
no picks.
But like, I would... if it were me, I would try not to just like, hey, you were on SmackDown and then you went to Raw, I'm just going to send you back to SmackDown. I'd rather someone who's been on Raw for a long time, who wasn't in part of either of the first shake-up, to then jump back and forth like that. So rather than just sending Miz back to SmackDown and then a year later sending him back to Raw and then a year later sending him back to SmackDown, someone like the Usos moving across to Raw is more interesting because they're so entwined with SmackDown, like AJ Styles going over because he's always been on SmackDown. That's more interesting to me than just Bliss going back to SmackDown. I also think that WWE like Bliss too much to send her to SmackDown, where it's the B show and she's an A show level talent in their eyes.
There's kind of an argument from the territory days that you have a heel work in a territory, they visit places, they work a program through, and Bliss has always been this long story in the end with Nia Jax. And then they go on to the next territory.
That's very interesting.
So I guess
that also works.
Both ways work.
Yeah, that does work.
Authors of Pain, though, it's not a... Whereas Ember Moon's debut, I was like, can't really say anything else to that. I guess you could have put her in a story, but it was a good, solid debut.
Yeah.
No Way Jose, that's his level. Fine. But with Authors of Pain, awesome. They came out to answer Heath Slater and Rhino's whatever challenge that was,
which is why I thought it was part of the Eliminator thing.
Whatever was on the line,
and the crowd instantly worked out who it was as well.
And when it was a great debut when they came out. They had Paul Ellering with them, and then they have the match over very quickly. Authors of Pain look great.
Yeah, they do.
It's not because we've seen them in NXT. We saw them on Saturday. And they look great there, but there's something so refreshing and reinvigorating about seeing people like this in a different environment. And they just looked just new and awesome, and I can't wait to see them wrestle, and their big jackets.
They look like action figures.
Yeah, like you've always said.
They're very toyetic.
And I think it was Heath Slater who actually got a bit of offense in on an Author of Pain. I'm really going to have to learn which
their
one's
names
which
are literally written on their jackets.
I can't pay attention to that.
Yeah,
tiny writing,
tiny writing,
and so they stumble, and that was a bad move, and then they just clobber Heath Slater. But at the end, they go for the fist bump with Ellering, and then they sort of don't do it and walk away. And Ellering is like, "Hey guys, what the hell?" And they kind of played it up on commentary as it looks like they're leaving Paul Ellering. So why bring out Paul Ellering?
Because, or maybe the story is, Ellering's going to go find another tag team, and then he'll feud with the Authors of Pain with his new boys to take on his old boys. And I mean, the only reason I say that is because they've literally done that storyline with Paul Ellering before, when he stopped managing the Legion of Doom and started managing what were they called? The Harris twins. I can't remember what they were called now. They had a different name, but they were the Harris twins, and they started managing them instead. And it was always like, oh, it's the manager of the Legion of Doom now with a new team against the Legion of Doom.
But that means you kind of start the story in the midpoint.
Oh yeah,
and I guess that's not a bad way of doing things. Just not what I would do. I would establish them with Paul Ellering, so when they turn on him, then it's more of a coherent, rounded story.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure. I mean, yeah, I get that. I mean, that's one way they could go, or they could just drop Paul Ellering and never use him again.
Well, yeah, perhaps they just it came up and Vince was like, "What's Paul Ellering doing here?" And they were like, "Oh, I'm not signing him to a contract. I'll have these lads, but I don't need Paul there." Because, as we know, Vince hates managers. So maybe it's just a thing which is a worry for Zelina Vega. But she's a pretty lady, so she'd be all right. But Paul Ellering's an old duddery lad. We don't want him around. So maybe it's just that they just don't want a manager.
It was a real shame, because when they came out, I honestly thought, well, hey, Paul Ellering's there. That's a manager. Great. This makes them feel even more different to the rest of the tag division, apart from just being good and threatening. And within 3 minutes, they were leaving him by the ringside.
Yep.
So, yeah, that's a shame. I don't think it's going to hurt them.
No, it won't hurt them.
But it's just like, why not just debut the Authors of Pain without Paul Ellering?
Mm-hmm. Because then the question would have been, where's Paul Ellering?
But only
people like us.
But now we're answering, why did you bring Paul Ellering out?
Well, yep. Maybe, as I said, maybe it's a storyline thing. More likely, it's not, and they just wanted to get rid of Paul Ellering, and they was like, well, we'll just have this one show, and this is why we've written him out of storylines.
Yeah.
The AOP of, like, Ellering has taken us as far as we can get. Problem is now they've got to cut promos. And
that's
Ellering,
gonna be difficult.
and they can cut promos, but Ellering was better when he was cutting the promos for them because he's got that menacing voice, and that works so much better as their package, as like with him with holding the book, and as they're just the authors and he's there with the book. I thought it worked much better than just them cutting promos on their own.
I kind of heard myself talking, and I'm not going to write it off. You could turn this into a real nice character beat, I suppose, where the commentators keep saying, hey, the authors of Pain, they're so ruthless, they ditched their manager on the first night as soon as they got to the main roster.
All right, Cole.
Yeah, well, so that could be one way. I'm hopeful. And it's because of what's happened with the Raw Tag Division. I'll come on to that in the full review, which we'll get to right about now.
Haha, it's a Raw review looking jacked, man.
Now, before we start the full review of Raw, we should probably say this is a wacky crowd, Luke. Oh, my God.
Oh, mate, it's Bizarro World.
Wow. So sometimes because they're wacky, and they're just here to have fun, they're going to cheer people that they would usually boo, and they're going to boo people they would usually cheer.
But it's only this crowd. It's the Raw After Mania. It's unlike any show that we do.
Everything that happens here, just ignore it. Try and just put your hands over your ears and
like Raw
press
25.
ahead.
It's non-canon.
Yeah.
These crowd reactions anyway.
It's a house show. That's all this is.
Oh, God.
But look at the main event. It's just a house show. Of course, this wasn't what Raw opened with. This came after the first segment with Stephanie McMahon and Ronda Rousey.
Yep.
But the camera then cuts to ringside, where it looked like Corey Graves had a gun pressed to his back. Because he was the one who had that line. They always do it every year, but it's usually Michael Cole. And they all, do their shtick. Michael Cole says, hey, it's the Raw After Mania. Coachman says something banal. And then it gets to Corey Graves, and he has to say, yeah, they cheer who they usually boo, and they boo who they usually cheer. He looked like there was no inflection. And Corey usually, when he shills, he's a professional when he shills, and he's not as annoying as Cole. It's part of the job. I get it. But that was the most uncomfortable I've ever seen him.
But he had it again later on where he said a Bizarro World line. Like, literally, the Jerry Lawler, it's Bizarro World here where the crowd are reacting. And I was like, this is how the crowd always react, Corey Graves. And you're literally, it's like someone just jabbed you. And you're like, Bizarro World. It's like that was zapping thing.
Well, there's only so much you can take Vince yelling in your ear.
Bizarro World, Bizarro World, Bizarro World. Say Bizarro World, goddammit.
So, yes, that happened. But the opening promo, Stephanie McMahon's awesome music hit to open the show, and she walked out very gingerly with a sling on, sort of an arm brace. Never seen that kind of cast.
Again, you can tell that it's a Triple H produced segment when people are selling their injuries from the pay-per-view beforehand.
Even Stephanie. Stephanie sold an injury.
We found someone that Stephanie will put over.
Wow. She came out and she cut a good promo. I like this. This was the Stephanie we always need. This is much more like how Mr. McMahon got over as a heel antagonist authority figure in the 90s with Stone Cold Steve Austin, and that's obviously lying and being a heel and not having anything within them to, like, any moral fortitude to back it up, because she was immediately lying, trying to spin it her way with the in-ring promo, saying, hey, and everyone's like chanting for
you
Ron,
tapped out.
You tapped out. And she says loads of people are praising someone who stepped into the ring,
stepped out of their comfort zone, stepped into something they've never, like, not their world. And it was me.
Yeah, I thank your applause and accolades. And that got some great heat. It was really, really good. And then Ronda Rousey came out.
What it's the loudest chant, or the loudest pop she's had since her debut at the Royal Rumble. And, like, it was that match.
That was a confused pop.
Yeah.
But this was genuine, yeah.
And that it's down to that match. It's down to that WrestleMania match. That match has made her a star in people's eyes. Because, like, it was such a good match.
Not the loudest pop of the night, though.
No.
Do you know who it was?
Who did get the loudest pop?
Nicholas! Get those hands.
Get these hands.
Those tiny hands.
Tiny fourth grade hands.
So, yes, Ronda Rousey came out. Huge, genuine pop. Great to see. Like, this is this is special. This is really exciting to see unfold.
I think even Ronda was a little bit surprised by the reaction that she got, because she was almost taken aback by the whole thing.
And you know how much we mocked Happy Ronda, and she was always smiling? I don't mind it now, because I believe in her and I buy into it. And I know that smile is just a cover for the mean face.
Particularly at the end of this segment, because the end of this segment was great.
So Stephanie continues to play this up and say, look, I brought out the best in you. I sacrificed myself for you. You should thank me. We can be friends now. And Ronda's smiling. We all know what's coming. Great work from Stephanie. She sacrificed herself here. She did. Like, all those words she said are true, in effect. She sacrificed her own ego to put over someone for once, and it's done very, very well. And she says this, and they embrace, and then they sit back a bit, and they're like looking at each other, and Ronda's face goes from this big grin into death mode. And then Stephanie's face turns, and Ronda I love the way she puts people in arm bars.
Yeah.
And slowly rips off the cast or whatever that thing was, and not breaks it, but the armbar was at a weird angle.
Yeah.
Is that an armbar or like an arm lock?
Well, I don't know. It just looked brutal. It looked really great. Stephanie sold it afterwards. Medical staff instantly ran down to try and help her out. It almost felt like a way to write Stephanie off TV for a bit.
Yes, that's what I felt.
And you got Corey Graves again brilliant, like, she's the boss, don't do that. And then when they kept showing replays of it later, Corey was like, don't show a replay, that's my boss.
As great as Corey was, Cole... Do you know the line I mean?
It's only because I've seen it in your note, and I'd forgotten that he'd said that, because I remember hearing it, I literally said, oh, shut up, Cole, but I didn't write that down, and you've just reminded me of it there.
So after this segment, when Ronda's walking off to cheers, Michael Cole says, maybe Ronda should change her name to Rebel Ronda Rousey.
Shut up, Cole.
In what universe is that worth saying? That was a waste of breath.
Such a dork.
Waste of breath. Like, you've taken a bit of energy out there. You know, they say, like, energy, heat transference. Energy in scientific terms.
You say that, you know the way they say heat transference? Only you say the word heat transference.
Energy never disappears. It just transfers into something else. Right? That's basic physics. Cole has managed to make energy disappear from reality by saying this line.
I like to envision it, though, even better, because when Cole says these doofy things, obviously they're lines that are fed to him. He's a robot. He's an automaton. They program stuff into him.
I think he thought this one.
You reckon he thought?
I think this is dad joke.
I like to think of it that he did think this one, because then he goes like, guys, maybe she should change her name to Rebel Ronda Rousey. And everyone around him going like, shut up, Cole.
Yeah. You've killed Ronda's push.
Oh.
Everyone hates Ronda now based on that line.
Absolute geek.
I read someone wrote like a funny exchange on Reddit, can't remember who it was, and it was of Coachman talking backstage to Cole and Corey before they go out, and Coachman says something like, I think the example was, so-and-so, it's like taking on LeBron James. What do you think of that line, guys? And they're both like, man, that's wicked.
That's
yeah,
a
use
great
that
line,
one.
yeah.
And he gets out there, he does it later on in the show. What are you saying that for, Coachman, you idiot? It's nothing like LeBron James.
Yeah. Or they'll say like, hey, has this person ever been on SmackDown? Because I haven't seen SmackDown, I haven't really been watching the program for years. They've been on SmackDown? Nope, never been before. Hey, I wonder if SmackDown... Oh, he's been on SmackDown! He's been on there before, you idiot!
So,
poor old Coachman.
After that, we had... that was the Ember Moon call-up next?
It certainly was, yeah. And that's when Cole subtly tells us that there is a superstar shake-up next week. And at the end of it, I didn't mention this, my shut up Cole line was when... Actually, there was another moment here. When she hit the Eclipse, you could tell that Coachman has never seen that before, because he popped massively for her, like, oh my God, what a move is that? And then Cole, when she won, Cole went, oh yeah! And I was like, oh, shut up, Cole. Don't buy anything he says.
Yeah. But after that match, it was Kurt Angle backstage, and we both wrote this down independently of each other, and we got tweeted it as well by someone. So it's like something happened here where the tipping point of Kurt Angle talking to no one on a phone has suddenly become too much. Because we're like, who's he talking to?
Who is he on the phone with?
Like, why would he need to be... The women's division's great, man. I cannot wait for this.
Because he's not... clearly he's not talking to a friend.
No.
Or like his wife or any of his kids. So who is he talking to? Is it a member of the board of directors? Is it someone in like WWE marketing maybe? Because the way they phrase it is just like, oh, it's a business call.
It's another kid.
It's just another one of it. It's Jason Jordan. Maybe he's calling Jason Jordan, who's in hospital, and he's just chatting with them and being like, oh man, Jason, I can't wait to have you back.
That is great. Like, why don't they do that? It keeps that Jason Jordan plate spinning. It builds on that father-son relationship. It kind of makes everything a bit more three-dimensional and funnier that Kurt is always on his phone to Jason Jordan.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Anyway, but he's talking about, like, it said that Ember's not the only debut that's coming up tonight, and then Braun walks in and Kurt congratulates him and then asks, oh, speaking of your tag team partner, where is Nicholas? And Braun literally goes, oh, he's right here.
Yeah.
And he steps out of the way. Nicholas steps out from behind him. Wonderful bit of of staging and stuff. And crowd pops huge for Nicholas.
Biggest pop of the night.
People like just really turn around. Oh, do you know? See, Kenny was not happy with that segment.
Really?
Kenny hated it.
Kenny McIntosh.
He certainly did. Like the one and the only. He hated it. Was just like going on and on and on about how much he hated that segment.
I think sometimes maybe it's something about Kenny's life that he hates, and he vents it towards a direction.
But it was so funny because then later on he was like, oh, anyone who hated that Triple H Ronda Rousey match, just like, I just think you should stop watching wrestling. And everyone was like, well, what about you with the Braun and the kid thing, man?
Yeah.
And anyway, I'm off topic. But so Braun, so crowd pops huge for him, and Braun says that they're relinquishing the tag team belts because Nicholas has scheduling conflicts. He's a fourth grader and he has to go back to school. Which I thought was a really great line. It's almost like Braun had only on Monday when the kid had to go back to school, and he's like, "Hey, you coming down to WWE today to train?" He's like, "No, I've got school."
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't think about that. I picked the wrong person out of the crowd. Really,
did not think this through. But it's also this was brought up on the Wrestling Observer review. Kurt Angle really should have been on top of this.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, this is illegal.
Yeah.
There are child labour laws.
Yep.
You can't really make him fight.
As far as this segment was going, before they handed over the belts, Kurt was about to book their next feud.
Exactly. It's like, oh, and can I see the new champion? It's a 10-year-old kid, Kurt. You're in New Orleans, where there are so many regulations about wrestling and pile drivers and moves being banned. You've got a 10-year-old kid as your champion.
I mean, I haven't checked. Is Nicholas now a recognised WWE champion?
Well, I certainly hope so.
Like, I mean, we should check Wikipedia because that is the fountain of all these sorts of knowledges. But I'm going to check WWE.com and see if he is registered as a former tag team champion.
So Nicholas, then, he had a cute bit at the end where Braun said, but we'll be back with him. Obviously when Nicholas is older, and Nicholas says, and then they're going to get these hands.
I hope they follow up on this. I hope that Nicholas is going to train to be a wrestler. He's got connections there already. He's a former champion. His dad's a referee. I hope that he does train, and then in 10 years' time, they'll be like, hey, do you remember Braun's old tag team partner? And you could play all the footage of him winning at WrestleMania 34, and then he has his debut match on Raw. That'd be great. Need to follow up on
this. That is long-term booking I don't think WWE is capable of.
It's the boyhood of WWE.
I know I said that I don't want to see Braun become a comedy, kid-friendly giant, but I also now want to see Braun Strowman hanging out with Nicholas at school. Maybe Nicholas is getting bullied.
Matthew of Botchamania retweeted saying, like, I can't remember who originally said this, but it was like, the tired version of this story is that Braun has to relinquish the belts. The wired version of this story is that Braun goes back to school with Nicholas, 21 Jump Street style.
Oh, yes.
And then you just do wacky segments with him at school.
Oh, my God. Braun sitting in one of those tiny desk chair combinations.
The Robin Williams film.
Yes. Jack, that's
the one, yeah.
So, a lot of people were split on the idea of a 10-year-old. Of course they were. Of course they were trepidatious about a 10-year-old boy being a recognised combat sports champion.
Yeah.
So I totally get that. And I was one of them.
Yeah.
I was one of them. I was more concerned about what this would do to Braun's character rather than the tag division as a whole, because I said that in the WrestleMania review that the tag division is somewhat dead anyway in the last 2 months. Just Braun winning that battle royal to become the single number one contender for the tag
Pretty
belts
much, yeah.
It is enough to kill it. And you look at those teams: Rhino and Heath Slater, the Revival, Galanderson, Miztourage. What is that?
It's just a load of jobbers.
So it's almost, I think this is actually a moment of genius that in retrospect is perfect, in that the Braun 10-year-old kid...
You can call him Nicholas. It's fine.
So yeah, the Braun Nicholas win is almost like putting an immediate relinquishing the next night. Is like putting a pin in the botched tag division on Raw for the last half a year. And now we can just move ahead with some refreshed, reinvigorated call-ups with Authors of Pain. You've got the Woken Matt Hardy and Bray Wyatt team that's come together. And the Superstar Shake-Ups next week. It's almost like, okay, that's dead. We paid it off with comedy and, let's be honest, actually quite a heartwarming moment. Now, I'm actually I really like the visual, and it just... if I was a kid, I think I would have loved that. And now we can just move ahead and have a good tag team division with new teams.
Yeah.
So yes, well done WWE. I think you actually did quite a cool thing there.
The only thing I would ask for is if they are going to do... I mean, I know they're not, but if they did do the Braun 21 Jump Street thing of him going back to school, is for him to do it always in his wrestling gear.
Yes. Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
So, was there a call up next?
There was.
Or...
There was the No Way Jose segment, and then we got Kurt Angle backstage, and the bar just basically walked up to him and said, like, so we're going to have our tag team belts back, right? And this is where Angle announced the tag team eliminator. He said that 4 teams will have matches, and the winners will face the bar at Greatest Royal Rumble, which is at the end of the month.
So 4 teams will have matches. So those 4 teams have had matches?
Yes, because they did announce...
So the AOP aren't in it?
No, that's what I'm saying. So next week, it's Matt Hardy and Woken, Matt Hardy and Bray Wyatt versus the Revival. They won. And then Authors of Pain come down, destroy all teams. Then Kurt's like, on the phone to someone, well, now I don't have, Jason Jordan, now I don't have my tag team match set for the Greatest Royal Rumble. And you set something up with that. Maybe that can be tied into the Superstar Shake-Up. And you can book something with the winner eventually facing the bar at the end of the month.
Okay, yeah, that kind of works. Do you want to put the belts on AOP so fast? Do you keep them squashing teams on the outside, Bludgeon Brothers style?
Maybe.
I don't know. But the first match was the Revival beating Luke Gallows and Carl Anderson. Carl Anderson looked great in this match.
He always does.
I mean, this guy is like... I can't remember who he fought, but like he had that G1 match in New Japan a couple of years ago, which was just phenomenal. He's such a good in-ring worker, and he's got charisma in his promos. Should be higher up.
Absolutely.
But they lost to the Revival in the end.
And the crowd were distracted by other things.
Were they?
Yeah, they weren't into this match whatsoever.
Oh, I thought they really were. I thought the crowd were popping huge for Carl Anderson.
I think they were popping huge for Carl Anderson, but before Carl got in, I think they were distracted by other stuff. I thought a beach ball had come out at one point, and they were distracted by that.
Apparently, the beach ball police were very on it. Lots of people were ripping them apart before they got a chance to get going.
I'd like to see one of them try to rip it apart, but it bounces out of their hands, and
they
accidentally create a more... Oh no!
Did you hear what happened after the main event?
No.
Loads of beach balls were released, and Rollins, Balor, and Jeff Hardy played it up. It was like all a big celebration of beach balls.
But the crowd aren't like usual crowds, though, are they? No. It's only going to happen on that show, isn't it? But yeah, the Revival won with the Shat Machine, so they advanced to the finals of the Eliminator?
Eliminator.
Tag Team Eliminator does sound like something from Gladiators.
Yes, well, that was the last bit, wasn't it? The run-up.
That was the Travelator, wasn't it? Not the Eliminator.
Make-A-Wish John Cena advert.
Do you know what? I didn't write this in my notes, but I saw this promo and I was like, there's a Make-A-Wish advert. Can't wait for Ollie to be irrationally bothered by this or make some comments about it.
This was fine. It wasn't about a made-up History Month.
Women's History Month. Oh my God, I hate this!
A whole month of something is a bit much. But this was a single advert. I thought this was pretty cool. And, I mean, John Cena's... getting connected by those shots from the kids, I thought was more realistic than some of the Undertaker match, so well done. Jeff Hardy returned next in a segment that started with Seth Rollins coming down, the new IC champion.
Crowd were hot for Rollins.
They were hard for Seth Rollins.
Weren't they just?
And they even got a burn it down chant going. Has that happened before?
That has happened before.
Right. Yeah. And in the main event, Rollins got the stomp going that he did in the main the WrestleMania event, the match, blah, blah, blah. And they got it to go into burn it down.
Yeah.
So hopefully that takes off. I think that's really cool. And Rollins says he's now a Grand Slam champion.
Now, some people have taken issue with this because he has not won the Universal Championship. Right. Neither is Roman, neither is Dean. But he's been referred to as a Grand Slam Championship because he's won the WWE Championship and all of the other belts available. So where do you stand on this? I mean, it doesn't matter anyway because it's an arbitrary title, but not the Universal Championship, just being a Grand Slam champion.
So I would say he is a Grand Slam champion, but he's not a modern Grand Slam champion because he hasn't won the Universal or WWE. Like it could be SmackDown's top title as well. He hasn't done that.
Yeah, he won the WWE Championship.
Not since the brand split.
He was World Heavyweight Champion, which is a different belt.
But Dean Ambrose has.
Yeah.
Because that was one of the things I remember. They were saying Roman Reigns has got to win the Intercontinental Championship, and only when he wins the Universal one, they can play him up as a modern Grand Slam.
But even in his promo, he calls himself, he's like, it took me a little while, but I caught up with Roman and Dean, and now all three members of the Shield are Grand Slam champions.
They obviously change the criteria from week to week.
Just depending on what they want to write in a script, yeah.
But cool, yeah. I mean, Rollins is a Grand Slam champion, really, great. And then Finn Balor interrupts to say, well, you deserve it, but I was never pinned, but you were the previous week. He wants to be the number one contender. Miz comes out and says, he, not really as a babyface now, that's been dropped.
I didn't think he was. It always felt like it was fake baby-facing rather than being an actual babyface turn.
But that fake baby-facing never turned into anything.
No, which is why they dropped it.
Yeah. But you could have just changed it here and worked it in. But Miz said, I lost. That made my daughter cry. That made my wife cry. It made me cry. Yeah. I'm man enough to admit it. And Seth Rollins was like, man, it's good that you admitted that. That now you know how we all feel when we watch you wrestle, which was just a scorcher of a line.
Exactly, yeah.
And then what happened? Miz wanted a rematch clause, but he said not now.
Seth said that he's not good enough to even lace his boots.
But he did say, as great as you are, you're not good enough to lace my boots. So he didn't say, Miz, you're rubbish.
Yeah.
He just said, you're comparatively not as good, which is how you should do it.
And Rollins says that, Miz, he has got his rematch clause. We could do this right here, right now, tonight, in this very ring. But Miz says, do you want to see that? No, I'm going to get my rematch at Backlash. Which why wouldn't you want it at Greatest Royal Rumble? Which is the next pay-per-view. Or do you want to just wait to see... Because Rollins has to defend that title at Greatest Royal Rumble. That's already been announced. So maybe do you want to see who wins that and then face the winner? I don't know. But Miz challenges all of them to a tag team match, and this is where Jeff Hardy makes his return to make it into a six-man for the main event.
Yeah, Jeff non-Brother Nero-y.
No.
And the last time we saw him, of course, he was in Final Deletion.
But later on.
Ultimate Deletion. Yeah. Sasha Banks and Mandy Rose had a match next.
It's Boss Time is my most hated Coleism.
My God.
It's between that and the Big Dog. I can't decide
Boss
which
Time's
one.
worse.
Yeah, I think Boss Time is worse. I do hate the Big Dog, but Boss Time just irrationally annoys me.
No, not irrational. Totally sound mind.
If you say so. Pisses me off.
So... Sasha Banks and Mandy Rose are about to lock up, but Bayley then makes a full-on entrance, and she gets in the ring, but then walks out the ring and stands in Sasha's corner.
And gets all the chance.
It was rubbish. Then Mandy Rose and Banks had a kind of half-assed match, and Banks was clocked by Bayley when she meant to go for Mandy Rose.
Yeah.
So, and then Rose won off the back of that. This is... You've had the turn. You've had the breakup between them.
That's what I was going to say.
Why are we still stuck in this eternal limbo? I didn't care anyway. You're making me care less every week.
I've literally read my notes here. It feels like all the parts have been in the wrong order. Like they wrote out this storyline, but they wrote it on Jenga blocks, and then they stacked it all up in the right order, and then Braun came in, and they all fell down. And then they're like, I can't remember what order this goes in now. So they've sort of built this Jenga tower up again, but all the bits are in the wrong place. Because you're right, we've had the turn. We had Banks holding up and say, raise my arm, which has never been played up since. And then here it's like, this should have been like almost week 2. And the Royal Rumble, the Battle Royal thing at WrestleMania should have come at a different point. This whole thing is just it's all wonkaloid, and I don't know what's going on.
It was rubbish. And
it was rubbish.
Then the Absolution celebrate, but Rose and DeVille start to walk out the ring as well, and that's because Paige has a gear shift, meaning she announces her retirement. Pretty much.
It's very sad.
It was really sad. And it means we can't make fun of the Paige here.
I know. Maybe that's why she did it. Because she was like, no, I'm becoming a meme. If I do something really emotional, people will stop it.
Which, I really want to... I think I'll try and... When I feel it's appropriate, I want to put a Paige here in.
Yeah.
I love that joke.
It's a good joke. But yeah, she said that Brian coming back has given her some sort of hope, but she's also spoken to Edge, who's backstage. He retired with similar issues, and he said that he kind of like gave her a lot of hope because there's stuff that you can do outside of... She more has very much said, there is stuff that I can do outside of WWE. There's acting, there's all this sort of stuff I can do. It felt like this was not just her retiring from active wrestling. This was her actually stepping out of WWE, and we won't see her as a character on TV anymore. Though I've seen some people say that she could show up on SmackDown tomorrow as the new general manager, which would be a really nice touch. Like, and that I think is a much better role for her than being a manager. Because someone asked me, like, I think from this we're going to see the split of Absolution next week. I think one of them will go to SmackDown, most likely Sonya Deville, and I think that's a good thing. When someone asks, like, why can't Paige just remain as a manager? The problem there is that Paige is such a bigger star than Rose and Deville. She just detracts from them. She's actually a crutch to that team. But as a general manager on SmackDown, that's a really, really great role for her. I think that'd be really good.
Yeah. It really does seem like she's leaving, which is a bit bizarre. I mean, she could. I think that's a good role, and maybe that. Because she's got a movie out with WWE about WWE. Like,
have you seen the clip of it?
Paige here. Paige here. See, we can still do it. It's fine. So it's quite baffling that that's telling me she won't leave, because WWE surely want her around to promote that sort of thing. Mm-hmm. So at least another 9 months to a year, and that works out perfectly as an authority figure role for SmackDown. Furthers the women's revolution thing. You get a female GM, whatever it is. But yes, this was a sad segment. It's such a shame.
It really was.
The crowd treated it perfectly
and chanted "This is your house," which I thought was really nice. I teared up a little bit. I got a little bit glassy-eyed during this. And there was a really nice moment. She said that she made her main roster debut in New Orleans, winning the Divas Championship. So she wanted to have her last night as an active wrestler, quote unquote, in New Orleans as well. And do you know what? It was the most heartbreaking thing of this is as she was walking up the ring, I think it might have been Cole, just when like a really short career in WWE, but man, she's accomplished so much. Yeah. And I was like, yeah, 4 years, and she was gone for a lot of that. Like, you know, for a big portion of that. A real shame. Really a shame.
Next up, we had the loudest Walk with Elias chant ever.
Oh, but my new favourite one was just, Walk with Elias.
Oh, I didn't hear that.
That was the biggest one.
Oh,
yeah, it was
I
great.
mean the one where he goes, "Who wants to walk with Elias?"
Oh, yeah.
And everyone did that.
I love that.
Elias is he's brilliant. He is so good at this character.
This is when they're doing the and that's when Corey Graves is like, what a bizarro crowd. Oh yeah, Corey, because no one ever chants during Elias' stuff, do they?
And he called everyone scumbags.
We are scumbags.
And the crowd chanted, "We deserve that."
Yep.
And then Elias started playing, and everyone started clapping along. And it just so happened, or he improvised, that the line in the song was, you know, something clapping along, "I'm going to punch you all in the face." So when he does it so well. It's like everyone's clapping, and he says that, "Way, I'm going to punch you all in the face" in the song. Whoa! He is so good.
He is great.
And it's like, he's such a dependable heat magnet that you can just send anyone out there and they're going to get over. That's the magnificence of his act. And who should it be this time?
Booby Lashley.
Booby Lashley. Action figure Lashley. He looks incredible.
Walking Armageddon, man. Like, I love that as a nickname as well. Walking Armageddon.
Yeah.
That just sounds so badass. Mm-hmm. I mean, and, you know, now the Impact Wrestling they've changed the way that their contracts work. He can carry that over. I'd like to see them. I'd like to carry on with that. But you know what? It's really funny. I've seen a few people online who said, like, "No, I wasn't really bothered about Lashley coming back." But those are the people who just a lot like me, just only remember his initial run, or like you saw his initial run later on, where you're like, yeah, even he was fine. Like he was brought up from OVW far too early. That was always the issue with Booby Lashley. But like, if you've seen his stuff in TNA and Impact Wrestling, man, like, he's completely turned his career around, and it's kind of cool to see him back in WWE, and I'm excited to see what he's going to do next.
Yeah, it's really exciting. Yeah. And of course, well, one of the rumours is that the main event of SummerSlam is going to be Brock Lesnar versus Bobby Lashley.
It certainly is, for the Universal Championship.
So that this is, you know, a lot of the stuff from WrestleMania, those exciting angles where like, oh, what's going to happen? Asuka's streak's over.
She wasn't on Raw.
She wasn't on Raw at all.
Just realised that.
Roman Reigns thing was kind of paid off on. But not really, only on Roman Reigns' wimpy part. The Brock Lesnar stuff wasn't really addressed at all. And this is like, you could have Paul Heyman and Brock cutting a promo, and then Bobby Lashley returns. That, to me, is a better way to bring him back. Although I did love this. It's weird how you didn't carry over a lot of the storylines from the previous night. I guess you had the Ronda and Stephanie thing, but that never really furthered anything. It was just kind of like a dead end.
It was
stop.
A full stop.
Yeah. But... So that's one minor criticism, but Bobby Lashley looked great when he did that delayed suplex.
Oh man!
And when he because I've seen that before, we've seen that loads. But when he put the hand off to one side and the crowd just started escalating and giving him this huge pop, really, really good stuff. I'm really looking forward to see what they do with him and how much he gets over.
Absolutely, yeah.
Next up, backstage. Kurt was probably on his phone, and who should appear?
He actually was on his phone.
But Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens in suits. And I love that.
That was
touch.
a nice touch, and they were there essentially to ask for a job because they lost at WrestleMania. They don't have employers anymore, and they were like, "Oh yeah," so we were looking to see if we can get a job here. And Kurt Angle basically said like, "Weren't you fired for attacking your general manager?" And they were like, "Oh yeah, but it was different over there.
Yeah.
It was a personal vendetta against us." And then we get the craziest line of the night, which is when Kurt Angle says, "I hear TNA are hiring."
Yes.
I heard that, and I heard the crowd pop, and then I went, huh, that wasn't what he said. And I skipped back, and I was like, he must have said something else. But he did say, TNA are hiring.
Yeah.
What a bizarre line. It's so odd.
After like forever of not acknowledging TNA's existence or impact, and as late as Friday at the Hall of Fame ceremony, Jeff Jarrett did not mention TNA once. The largest, most defining part of his career, arguably, and where he spent, 18 years.
Yeah.
Didn't mention it once in his Hall of Fame induction. And it's not like they're going to induct him as Jeff Jarrett Intercontinental Champion and then Jeff Jarrett as TNA founder like they do with some people. It really... And now here the TNA can be the punchline of a joke.
Yeah, and I mean, they're not called TNA, which is the other funny thing.
Well, I think that's part of the jab.
I wonder if that was part of the jab, or WWE don't know that they've changed their name and they just still think they're called TNA. Well, I mean, which, in all fairness, a lot of people do, bless them.
Yeah.
And it was just like, the crowd were really taken aback by it. Like, it
was shocking.
The whole crowd was like, oh my God, they just said TNA.
Yes.
A TNA chant broke out later on in the show, and I thought, I don't think that's happened since December 2006.
It's like... It's akin to someone dropping a C-bomb. Because it's such an unexpected word to hear.
Yeah.
I mean,
I thought it was a botched line at first.
Well,
I thought he meant to say NXT. But like, just the first thing he thought of was TNA because he'd actually spent more years in TNA than he did in WWE. But maybe it wasn't a botched line. Apparently, Impact have taken it quite well.
So Angle then books a singles match between Owens and Zayn because he's only got one spot on the show, and of course this is just to play them against each other. Corey Graves had a wonderful, wonderful line after the bit that you said where, Kurt was like, didn't you just get fired for attacking your general manager and commissioner last night? Corey cuts back to Corey, and he's like, what were you doing last night, Kurt? You were beating up the commissioner.
Excellent stuff. Then we got the Authors of Pain debut, and then they announced that Brock Lesnar has re-signed with WWE, and he's going to be having a match with Roman Reigns at Greatest Royal Rumble inside a salad steel cage in Saudi Arabia, and I think that's April 27th. That show. It's been announced for the WWE Network. But every time I'm trying to work out the wording of the press release because they have announced that it's on the network, but I think that might just be in the States because it's on Sky Box Office here in the UK, and if it's on Sky Box Office, that I don't know then if it's going to be on the network here in the UK either.
They usually are, aren't they?
I don't know. Sometimes they are, sometimes not. Like in a special show like that, because if it's a deal that they've struck with Sky. There could be something that's like it has to be on pay-per-view and it can't be on the network. So I don't know because all the other stuff they said like for the Middle East, it's like it's available on network providers outside of the Middle East. So I don't know where it's airing at the moment, but I kind of hope it's going to be on the network.
A lot of money must be involved in that Saudi Arabia deal.
Do you know what? It's so much money they haven't mentioned it. When people apparently they asked on the investors call, and they aren't disclosing the amount of money that it is, but it must be a lot of money.
Interesting. So off the back of that, Roman Reigns comes out and is in sort of, he's wearing tracksuit bottoms and the crowd are booing him, but nowhere near as much as the previous year. Of course, you had the Undertaker retirement off the back of that, but it was just kind of like a boo because we have to, and they let him speak pretty much immediately.
Well, I was going to say, it almost felt like the crowd went back to their normal selves. Like at WrestleMania, they were completely, apathetic, and they were completely ambivalent to everything. They just didn't care. But here, they were back to booing Roman Reigns and booing the things that he said, or just, doing a constant boo, which, if your intention is to not get Roman Reigns pushed, is just not the way to do it. But yeah, I just thought it was odd that they went back to their normal selves again.
The content of this promo, however, was very, very strange. Roman comes out and he's being whiny. He's not like an endearing baby face. He's moaning about how he had to find out about that Brock Lesnar steel cage match for the Universal title on the internet. And it's like, mate, you lost your chance at the Universal title. You've just been given one. Why are you moaning about that? You should be coming out here and saying, I'm going to kick Brock Lesnar's ass, and now he's in a steel cage, I can do it even more so, or something to that effect. And, in front of the great people of Saudi Arabia, whatever, get a big pop there. But he doesn't. He says that Vince McMahon has kind of gone behind his back or shortchanged him somehow. And he mentions how when he arrived at WrestleMania, he felt like something was up. People weren't looking him directly in the eye. And it's, what are you trying to accomplish here? Are you trying to say that the planned result of the fake wrestling match was Roman Reigns beating Brock Lesnar because Lesnar was off to the UFC? That's another thing Reigns said. He said, Dana White said Brock was off to the UFC, but he's still here. Or what? Why would you bring that up? Because it makes wrestling sound fake, and the result of a fake match was changed last minute, unbeknownst to Roman, so he didn't win a fake title. And that's very Vince Russo. And that is very, I don't like that style of booking at all.
Do you know what? You've hit the nail 100% on the head, because it does feel very, quote-unquote, shoot, because you're referencing real things. The story is that the decision to alter the finish of the match was made not at the last minute, but as close enough to the last minute. And the only people that knew were like Vince McMahon and some producers, I believe. He said the production truck didn't know, and a lot of the producers didn't know. People in Gorilla didn't know. In fact, the ref didn't know until halfway through the match, and that's when he was told, count the 3, when Lesnar gets a pin. So it felt like Roman's there making these sort of shoot comments about that in this promo. But to your point, it doesn't work because it just makes everything sound like it's fake. And the problem when Russo used to write these promos in WCW in 99 and in 2000 is that not everyone reads the internet. It's this WWE mentality, like, well, everyone reads the dirt sheets, everyone reads the internet, everyone knows what's going on. But actually, it's a small portion of the WWE audience watches these sorts of videos, reads the dirt sheets. An even smaller portion read the dirt sheets. So when he says these comments, the large audience don't know what he's talking about. And then it just comes off as just a big fake phony thing, and that makes it sound ridiculous.
Yeah, ridiculous, or at best confusing.
Yeah.
And even if you even if you take it like in the best possible way, you're still making a babyface look pathetic.
Yeah.
Because he's moaning about all this stuff, and he just comes across as entitled. And then you let Samoa Joe come out with a fantastic return and an on-fire promo.
Oh, God, I've missed him.
And Joe just calls Roman out for being a failure, for saying for a year that you can beat Brock, but time after time you've lost to Brock. So you are making promises that you're not following up on. That's like babyface logic 101. If a babyface says, I'm going to beat you, usually you can't not beat that person for long. You have to fulfill that promise to put faith in the champion. But Joe rightfully pointed out, you're full of crap. You keep failing. I'm going to beat you too. And he said it so well that you just root for Joe, and you're like, Reigns, you're not a baby. It's like not even. It's terrible babyface booking.
Can I give you my prediction?
Yes.
I mean, maybe I don't want to say this out loud in case I do actually cause something bad to happen. Reigns loses at Greatest Royal Rumble. He then loses to Joe at Backlash because Joe announced that he announced that he's like, even if you beat Brock Lesnar at Greatest Royal Rumble, I want to face you at Backlash. So he loses to Brock Lesnar, loses to Joe at Backlash, and then he goes on this year-long, like, whiny, this, that, and the other, being entitled, crowd are booing him, and then all of a sudden he has a character change, and he's like, no, I need to fight for this, and I need to fight it, and then he starts making this comeback of being like, no, I'm going to be a badass, wins the Royal Rumble, and then faces Brock Lesnar at WrestleMania 35, who is still Universal Champion at that point, and that's where he finally wins, and we get the coronation of Roman Reigns.
I feel like Saudi Arabia is going to be more positive towards Reigns.
Undoubtedly so.
And I think they might do the title change there. Because you give Saudi Arabia obviously paying a lot of money. They are promoting this more than any other like sort of network special in another country that they've done before. And Roman Reigns is more over in those parts of the world. So if it wasn't going that way at WrestleMania, that crowd just was not into the match, you convince Brock to stay a few months more, and you do the title change there. That's
a much better way of doing it. That was my first thought, that it was going to be, like, did you see the title switch in Saudi Arabia instead?
Yeah.
Well, at least, when he was announced that he'd been re-signed.
And then you can have the title match, Reigns versus Joe at Backlash.
Which makes sense.
But Joe's return was great. His promo was fantastic.
Joe's the best.
Then the Woken family. Matt
is that
Hardy,
what you're calling them?
Yeah, try to. Matt Hardy and Bray Wyatt defeated Titus Worldwide. This was an eliminator?
Yes, this was an eliminator match. I thought this match was a complete mess.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, it was just like, how you called the Banks Rose match kind of half-assed? This felt sort of half-assed as well. Because they just, they just did stuff. Yeah. And that's fine, because that's what the match was designed to be. But it was just a load of stuff happening. It was just spots to kind of like... What this match was essentially, here's what all our new spots are as a tag team.
It was a showcase.
A showcase, just to say, like, here's... But it just felt like, we've done that bit, right, let's move over and we'll do this bit now. Right, we've done that bit, let's move over and we'll do this bit now. As opposed to weaving those spots into an actual match itself. See, I just thought it was a bit of a mess. But the crowd were super into it, and they were into all the new spots they created. Bray Wyatt doing the wonderful clapping, like they really enjoyed that. That was good. And it's my real disappointment with this is that Bray doesn't really look any different.
I wrote the same thing. Yeah. Why would you not take this opportunity to completely freshen up his look?
Yeah, he's wearing an apron.
Exactly the same with an apron.
Yeah. And the commentary in this match. Hey man, you saw Michael Cole talking about how dumb this whole thing is, and then Corey Graves playing the internet talking about how great this all is, and Coachman saying things, and then them telling him that he's an idiot because that's their gimmick now with Coach. He's the new Booker T. It was so unlistenable.
Yeah, but I enjoyed the spots in this match, though. The delete and the worldwide.
Like they're really the delete and worldwide thing was great. Like that was really good. But and the spots that they've got as a tag team, they're good and they should get over. It's just that none of them were woven into an actual match.
Yeah, I didn't actually. I do like that they've merged these things together.
Yeah,
I would appreciate a costume consistency with them too. But the final move, I didn't like. So Bray has
the Sister Abigail into a twist of fate.
Yeah, so you've got the Sister Abigail, and then Bray swings that person back, and they walk a bit, and they stop, and then Matt Hardy gets them into a twist of fate and hits a twist of fate. So that would work if the momentum took them into the twist of fate, almost like a twirling RKO. But you stop the momentum. And it's meaningless.
Yeah.
It's just for show.
And calling it a Sister Abigail into a twist of fate that's a real stretch because you're not actually doing the move.
So after that, we had a cracking little bout.
Oh God, wasn't this
between Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn? They just went to the last 5 minutes of a match right away.
And it was great.
Yeah. They're so good working together. They played off so many different spots, countering their usual high bits in the match. There was Zayn's jumping through the ring post, not through the ring post, but to the left of it, into the super kick. The finish was a sort of Kevin Owens what would you call that? Twirling suplex off the
Yeah.
second rope that looked really nice. And that was a double down. They both got counted out. And it was a draw, so neither man will be signed to Raw.
My prediction for this was that Kevin Owens was going to win. And then on SmackDown, we were going to see the debut of a new wrestler. That's what
Sorry,
I
I cut you off.
Oh, no, it's fine, because that's what I was going to... It's glad that you finished. Because El Generico's just like... Because he's just started tweeting again. And, like, they've started putting some stuff up on Pro Wrestling Tees and stuff like that. And I'm like, this is very interesting. That would have been really great. It's like, we all know it's Sami Zayn, but everyone acts like it's this new guy. It's El Generico.
Do the Mr. Something America gimmick.
Yeah, Mr. America, I think
The Hulk
it was.
Hogan
The Hulk
one,
Hogan
yeah.
thing. Like, you could have done that and that would have been
That'd
really
be funny.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's going to be interesting to see what they do with this now, because now they have been fired from SmackDown and they're not getting a job on Raw. So where do you kind of go from here? Although, again, it was that thing of just like, you got such a great team together. Oh, let's just break them up. Done that far too early.
Yeah. But I guess we'll find out in the Superstar Shake-Up next week. I'm sure they'll find a logically flawless way to bring them back.
But this is where the crowd chanted TNA, which, as I said, I think is the first time in 12 years that chant has broken out at a WWE event, and then they stopped chanting that and started chanting New Japan instead as they cut to the back.
So the main event was
I
preceded.
thought you weren't going to do that backstage segment for a second. Then. This might be the best thing on the show.
Jeff, Finn, and Seth are walking along. Jeff with his rainbow arms.
I love Jeff.
And Bray, Matt Hardy walked past and they had Brother Nero. Did he say? He didn't say I knew you'd come.
No, I thought he said my brother because they
Yes.
saved the Brother Nero line for Bray later on in the segment, and I thought that's when I thought he would then say I knew you'd come.
Yeah. And that they sort of had a few words, and then Bray walked in. It looked tense for a moment. I thought they were going to have a stare off, but they embraced.
Yes.
And
so the storyline is, and this is what they told during the match as well, because no one's really said what the Lake of Reincarnation has done in a promo setting. But the comment, like, Cole was essentially said, here's what the storyline is, but Cole thinks it's all dumb. So he's like, oh, something, the Lake of whatever it's called has done something with Sister Abigail. And Corey's like, oh, what it's done is it's made Sister Abigail obsolete. And then Jeff said that. So that's the storyline is now, that he has been rid of Sister Abigail, I think.
yeah, as much as I don't like the WWE commentary, I do actually enjoy Corey correcting Cole on the legitimacy of the Woken universe.
If it leads to a match, if it leads to a deletion match with Michael Cole, that would be awesome.
Yeah, but after this, Jeff turns round and Seth or Finn goes, "What was that all about?" And Jeff just shrugs and they walk off.
Yep.
Which is a nice, fun, fan-serving moment.
Yeah,
Wish
good
they
stuff.
did more of that.
Yeah.
And then the main event was pretty decent, went quite long. It was just a house show match.
Yeah, it was a house show 6-man tag.
Yeah.
You had Miz and Miztourage versus Balor, Rollins and Jeff. You can tell how much this was just a house show match because they cut to the commentators at the end to send us off. Commentators were like, oh, actually, I know you just had that match, but here's all the big stuff that actually happened on the show. We'll see you next week.
Yeah. And I thought Seth looked really good.
Oh, God, he's great.
Yeah. It was so hard for him, and that's when he got the burn it down chant with the leg stomping before the curb stomp.
Coach didn't know how the shake-up works
Yes.
during this match. He talked about
No
the
one
Superstar
does.
shake-up, and they had to keep calling him an idiot for not knowing how it works. I'm like, give him a chance. He's only been here 3 months.
So overall, a really fun Raw full of surprises and returns and big announcements like Paige's retirement and the Owens and Zayn cameo on Raw, Superstar Shake-Up next week. Very newsworthy. But underneath all that, it's actually lacking a bit of substance. There was no real storyline progression. A lot of the big stuff from WrestleMania, Asuka's streak ending, Brock Lesnar, John Cena, yeah, no Undertaker stuff. I forgot about that. But he's a free agent.
Well,
I mean, that's going to pay off on 205 Live, surely. That wasn't really there, and I would have liked that. So that's why I gave it a 4 out of 5 a core. What about you?
I think that's very fair, and I would have done the same thing because you're right. Like, it is newsworthy in that we got NXT call-ups. It's newsworthy that Samoa Joe's back and Jeff Hardy's back, and we got Brock Lesnar re-signed and all this, that, and the other. And you got all this sort of stuff happening, but the actual show itself, like, nothing is moving. Like, it feels like nothing is moving forward. We're not progressing anywhere. It was a televised house show and a very fun one.
Yeah, with lots of newsworthy moments.
and that's fine. You know,
so
but
same for you, 4 out of 5.
4 out of 5. My thing with every time with the Raw After Mania is that Raw After Mania is always fun but it's how you follow up the week after.
Yes.
And next week it's the draft. And the draft is always fun as well.
What's a draft?
Sorry, the Superstar Shake-Up.
A draft's a thing that comes through on my door at home. You mean a Superstar Shake-Up?
And that'll be fun because you'll have surprises there. Like we had this exact same conversation this time last year. That'll be fun because you've got SmackDown guys and girls jumping across and this and the other. So next week will be fun as well. It's how you follow up the week after that. Like that's where you really got to judge how effective these shows are.
And Superstar Shake-Up. What are the rules? What are the rules?
Well, I think
Luke still doesn't get this reference. What are the rules?
No. Anyway, and so we're going to have to... I think we're going to see some tag teams breaking up because they were really putting over the idea that tag teams are going to break up this time round. Absolution, I think, for sure, is not going to be a unit as of next week.
New Day. Maybe it's time.
Oh, you think it's time for the New Day to break up? Man.
Wow.
Wow.
Xavier to 205 Live. And then Kofi and that'd be really sad, and they've got a lot of merch. So please click the videos that have just appeared on our laps to catch up with the latest WrestleRamble or WrestleTalk news. Subscribe to this channel to be notified by everything. I don't know what I'm saying. Podcast.
It's like that
Patreon.
It's like that guy we ran into a wrestling show who just said we're really bad at this.
Yeah, magazine, buy that as well. The Almanac. This has been Luke Owen. I've been Ollie Davis, and that was Rambling.